In this video, we will be reviewing order of operations. So in the front of your notebook, make sure you're putting in order of operations under that Unit 11 topic in the front of the units of study. And once you are ready and you have that ready to go, flip back in your notebook and get to the back of where we have all of our Unit 11 materials, and we'll get started. All right, so once you're in the back of your notebook, you should have this part copied. And we are going to review order of operations. Now, when you were in elementary school, they probably talked about PEMDAS. And we're talking about the same thing as PEMDAS, but I'm sure you wrote it out like this in elementary school. Now, we changed PEMDAS in middle school to GEMDAS, but we pair our multiplication and division and our addition and subtraction. And the reason that we call it GEMDAS is because in elementary school, you typically only used parentheses. But in middle school, we used lots of grouping symbols. So the G stands for groupings. Now, groupings could include the parentheses. You can include brackets. It could include fraction bars. We're going to talk about those today. And also absolute value. So there are lots of different grouping symbols that we've talked about in middle school, which is why we changed the P to a G. Now, after grouping comes our exponents, and we just learned about those. So after we solve our groupings, we move on to exponents. Then we pair together this multiplication and division. And the reason we do that is because you guys, when you look at this, you think automatically multiplication has to come before division, and that's not always the case. So we pair multiplication and division side by side, and we draw a little arrow to tell us that we are multiplying or dividing. So multiply or divide from left to right. So it's like you're reading a book. Whichever one comes first in line, you do that one first. They're buddies. Division is just the opposite of multiplication, so we have to do it all in the same line. And then we do the same thing with addition, subtraction. We're going to add or subtract, whichever one comes first. From left to right. All right, so let's look at some examples now, and I hope most of this is a review for you. We're just starting to make it a little bit more complicated. If not, that's okay, we'll work our way through it. So we have two examples here. I would start out, copy the first example, and then let's work through the first example. So I'm gonna write our little GEMDAS down the side, so I can mark off my steps as I go. So looking at this, I'm going to always start at the top. Do I have any grouping symbols? Well, it turns out that I do have a grouping symbol. So I'm going to underline what's inside. And there's nothing else in there besides the subtraction. So I'm going to solve the subtraction first. 6 minus 3, and that gives me 3. And then I have to bring down everything else that I haven't touched yet, because I've only worked with this part of the problem. So I have to bring down the division, I have to bring down the 2 with the exponent, and I have to bring down the 3. So I have solved my groupings. There are no more grouping symbols left. I now have to look at my exponents. Do I have any exponents to solve? And I do. I have a 2 squared, or 2 to the second power. Now, if you don't know what 2 to the second power is, you can write it out to the side. 2 times 2. Remember, it's the base multiplied by itself 2 times. And 2 times 2 is 4. So after I'm done solving this part of the problem, I'm going to put my 4, and I have my times 3 still, and my divide by 3. So now I've solved my exponent. And then here's where things get tricky. Multiplication or division, whichever one comes first in line. Well, in this case, the multiplication comes first. So 3 times 4 is 12, and then I have to do the division, and then the last step will be the division. 12 divided by 3 gives me 4. Now, when you're done with your order of operations problems, they should kind of look like a piece of pizza or a piece of pie. They should start to taper down. You're only doing one step at a time in a line. All right, now the next one's a little bit more complicated, but not by much. I'm going to start with my GEMDAS down the side so I make sure I don't miss any steps. And I'm going to start with my groupings. Do I have any groupings to solve? I do. Here's one. 4 minus 1. Well, 4 minus 1 gives me 3. Now, remember, when a number is squished against a parenthesis, that's like there's a hidden multiplication sign there. So I need to bring down my multiply with my -3. Don't forget about this exponent here. It gets stuck against the number that pops out of the parentheses. It's like the exponent's waiting there to attack. And then I have plus 22. I'm done with my groupings. Do I have any exponents to solve? I do. I have this 3 to the second power. 3 to the second power is written out as 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. So I have 9, and then I have times -3 plus 22. Done with exponents. Do I have any multiplication or division to solve? I do. I have this -3 times 9. Use the triangle for this one. 3 times 9 is 27. A positive times a negative gives me a -27 plus 22. Now, here's where things get complicated. I have a -27 and a positive 22. I have more negatives than I do positives. It's going to end up canceling, and I'm left with a -5 for that one. So what I would like for you to do, here are 2 more examples. I want you to try these 2 on your own. Take your time. When you're ready, unpause the video and we'll walk through them. So you should start out by writing your GEMDAS down the side so you don't make a mistake and work your way down it. Do I have groupings? I do, and I have to follow order of operations inside of my grouping, so I have to do this exponent first. 2 to the third power, that means 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 more gives me 8. So now I have 8 plus 7, and don't forget this is in parentheses, times 4 plus 2. 8 plus 7 gives me 15, times 4 plus 2. Bring everything down. Now this gets you a bigger number here, 15 times 4. I don't know 15 times 4, so I'm going to write it down. 15 times 4, 5 times 4 is 20, 4 times 1 is 4, 5, 6, I get 60, plus 2. 60 plus 2 for final answer gives me 62. Make sure your work looks like a piece of pizza. For the second example, I'm going to write my GEMDAS down the side so I don't lose any steps. I have a grouping here to solve, 6 plus -3. 6 plus -3 gives me a positive 3 times 2 to the second. Groupings are gone. Exponents come next. I have this 2 to the second, which is really 2 times 2, which gives me 4. So I have 4 times 3. And then I'm just going to multiply. 4 times 3 gives me 12. All right, the last type of problem that we're going to talk about is the ones with the evil fraction bars. And when we solve ones with the fraction bars, we're going to treat them like 2 separate problems that we're smushing together with that fraction bar, and we're going to divide once we solve the top and solve the bottom. So if we look at this example, I'm just going to look at the top part first and work my way with it. So let's just look at the top part. There's my top. So if I'm looking at just the top, what would I solve first? Well, I'd have to solve this grouping part first. So 2 plus 3 would give me 5, and then I attack it with that exponent, so 5 squared. And then once I get 5 squared is really like 5 times 5, so I get 25. Okay, that was not too bad. Let's do the bottom. Focusing in on the bottom now. I have -1 minus 4. -1 minus 4, well, if you need to draw it, I have 1 negative and then 4 more negatives, or you could use the number line. So I end up with -5. I'm going to bring this over and put it over my fraction with a -5. I'm going to keep on solving, bring it over for my -5. So now I have 25 divided by -5. Use the triangle for this one. 25 divided by 5 gives me 5. And then I have a positive divided by a negative gives me a -5 for that one. And please do me a favor, make sure you're circling your answers. You are going to be required to show work for this quiz, and if we can't find your answers, we can't give you full credit. So please make sure you are showing your work and circling your answers. The last one, I want you to try this one on your own. Solve all the top. You don't have to do anything on the bottom. Just solve all the top and then do the division. See if you can get your answer at the end. So if we go to solve this one, starting at the top, I have to do the subtraction first. So 8 minus 8 would be 0. And I still have 9 on the bottom. Then 0 times 1 gives me 0. And 0 divided by 9 gives me a big old 0. So if you have any questions about order of operations, please make sure you ask your teacher. We will be going over it a lot during class the next few days. But remember, you can always write down some extra examples of the ones that we go over in class. This is just kind of get you started. Thank you so much and have a great day.